Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of Espresso Cafe. My name is Lindsay Wessner, and I am joined this afternoon by Dr. Chris McWade. It is wonderful to be chatting about Mugnificent PBL in higher ed, and we'll I'm sure explore exactly how magnificent and unmagnificent PBL can be in the higher ed space as we chat. But thanks, Chris, for joining us. Do you want to just give people a little bit of an intro? Tell us a bit about who you are and what you love.
Sure. So I started about 10 years ago in the higher education space. Tutoring and lecturing, mostly in the beginning, English literature. So this was poetry, novels, and literary analysis, and this kind of thing. And for a while, for a long time, from the start of my journey, it was I was just kind of going through the motions, I guess, learning how the systems worked. But I didn't really have a consideration for the students and their their goals, their competence, and it really was in the beginning and for a few years just this thing of like, okay, I'm just gonna talk for the 2 hours, and then you're gonna have to write an essay, and I'm gonna kind of sit back and as the show me what you got method, basically.
We've all been there, right?
yeah, and I guess that's how it starts. But it's at some point, a few years ago, I started reading about research-based education and student-staff partnerships and co-authoring with students, and kind of just changing that sort of relationship from one of hierarchy and distance and demand to more considering of potential collaborations and being sensitive to their experiences. And so that was the shift, and since then I've been kind of trying new things with varied levels of success, and learn some things about what doesn't work in particular over the journey. It's been quite humbling to step out of the norm of doing things, and just it's been challenging.
It takes a decent amount of courage, though. So before you beat yourself up too much, I think it's important that what's important is that you have done something about it, and you haven't just kind of realized that the way we're doing things is perhaps potentially not quite optimal. So I'd actually love for you to tell those watching a little bit about the process that you've undergone, like what you've been doing with PBL in the higher ed space, and the things that you've been trying with your students.
So I wanted to co-author a journal article with the students. The idea was I was going to be a contributing co-author, and then after the fact editor, and all the students were also going to be contributing co-authors. And so the idea is that I would write, and it was really nice for me to actually be able to write. Whereas, I mean, in education and higher ed is sometimes a culture of publish or die. You need to be doing your research. You also need to be doing your teaching. So you need to be doing your writing and being in class. And so it was nice for me to, as part of the assessment process, actually be writing, and also kind of doing what I was expecting them to do practically, which was really nice.
Which also speaks largely to the difference in the power differential that you were chatting about. Typically it's very hierarchical, trying to kind of level that up a bit.
Yeah, it can work towards a more kind of mutual trust, because they see you kind of not being this distant figure who's just kind of speaking and telling them what to do, but they were writing, I was writing, and it was good. There were a couple of things though that came up in the process. The one that surprised me a little bit was the extent to which the students, and so I did this in a third year class with a third year group and then with an honors group. And from both groups, there was some feedback, some sentiment of the value that they had on doing things individually, like having my own work, having ownership of my own stuff. And I was kind of organizing this to be, okay, we're all going to be a sort of part of this project. We're all going to work towards making contributions to it. But so I think some of them were on board with that, but automatically, not all of them were. A lot of them were like, I would prefer to write my own article or whatever it is.
I think it's important that students understand the value, right? So when we're saying to our students, hey, collaborate, that if they can't identify for themselves why that is a better option than them doing something individually, and if we haven't articulated that to them and kind of said to them, here guys, here's the vision, here's why I want us to tackle this way rather than the traditional way, we can understand their resistance to a point, right?
Absolutely, and to empathize with that, it was almost in the beginning this thing of we're going to collaborate, it's going to be exciting, and if we're innovating, we often have this kind of thing of we feel like everyone's just going to be excited as we are because I don't know, they should be. It's like, but you should be.
Surely
it's like come with me, And they had like concerns about it, and it was very different. And I maybe would say that I wasn't sensitive enough to what the change meant for them and what they were used to. And then to kind of, as you were suggesting, kind of walk them through the change, be more sensitive, be more empathetic, be more like, I know this is a new kind of thing. There's a change, but students and then managers and everyone involved in making all this happen, there's a need to feel safe, right? That innovation, as exciting as it can be, is a risk thing, is a change thing.
It's a threat to the status quo.
Yeah. And then we often want to look at that and be like, oh, why do you want to feel so safe, perpendicular to progress, just come with and have this sort of bullish innovator identity that, we've been fed through narratives of like Steve Jobs was like that, and it's like the Apple thing, and it's like, let's just push ahead. But it's not going to be a good experience. It's not going to take off or work unless there's a sensitivity to what the change means for them as students or as managers who are overseeing the whole thing, or whoever's involved.
Completely. I think, I call myself an eduimagineer, with the kind of idea of imagining and dreaming and believing that education can and should be better, for the sake of our students and those who are teaching, lecturing, etc. But then also in designing and engineering and constructing and building it differently. And I think, in a way that being able to articulate the why and being able to dream and to be able to imagine how things might be different. But then I love what you said about kind of consciously and intentionally actually considering before we come with our guns blazing, passionate innovation mandate to revolutionize everything today, that we actually consider, the stakeholders involved, and we consider their experience of it. And also, what are the benefits of the status quo for them? And if we can identify that, then we're like, right, so actually, the status quo serves you in this way. So I need to then be intentional in my design to articulate to you why it is that we're not doing learning this way, and to make the value, right? Because otherwise we do get stuck. And I think that is a really, really key piece of advice for people who, have an innovative mindset and are passionate about changing teaching and learning for the better. Is that actually without that empathy and without that kind of conscious intention, we can miss out on getting. I don't think we'll ever get everything right first time, but we can miss out on getting more things right sooner.
Yeah, definitely. And
any
like you were
other things?
saying,
Yeah.
yeah.
Any other things that you learned in the process that you want to share with us in terms of better design, really?
So yeah, like you were saying, the sensitivity and empathy need to be there, and they need to also inform the design that you have, and that needs to speak to the needs that they have, in a real way. So in my case, it was like, okay, I need to have a definite structure for where the marks come from and how it's going to be marked, and that was also something that I learned about them. Is I was also trying to say to them, like, the marks are less important than the process and the learning, and some of them were kind of like, but marks are important to us,
Yeah, it's a very narrative to shift that.
Yeah, and that was also something that I didn't really spend time with, that I was just expecting them to abandon in the interests of the project and what I was trying to do. So there was that. There was also, I put them into groups because I thought it would save time and create less marking for me. But it was, then it's the things that come with groups, conflict within the group. This person's not pulling their weights and I'm doing all the work, and this is like needs to happen now and it's not happening, and all this stuff. I mean, there really could have been a structure there of a peer review or definite channels for, if
Absolutely.
conflict like this arises, this is what we do. And I didn't quite build that into the process either, and it created stress.
And it's a great, what I find is that that kind of wicked problem that we have of group work and collaboration can actually, with intentional design, like you say, be a really good space for bringing in authenticity into PBL, in terms of, kind of even things like real world roles, and defining group roles, individuals in the group role according to kind of what they might be in a workspace, or what that might be in an academic team or faculty or something like that.
Sure.
And also the ability for us to say, to give adequate structure, and to scaffold that learning so that they feel like that they are safe and the expectations are clear, but that in the same space you're creating that room for learning. I think, when we call teachers learning architects, that's what we mean, right? Because it is about that intentional design. And I think so often people tell me, oh, Lindsay, I've tried PBL, but it doesn't work, so I'm not doing it. But actually, if you look very carefully at those kind of 8 elements, I think what you've done is shared some really important lessons for kind of, what's the driving question, what's the problem, and is it actually a problem for those who are engaging in the process? Do they connect to that? Do they connect to the why? Have we set them up for success in terms of structuring group work? Have we built in authenticity? Have we actually considered what it is that they value versus our value, and not that they have to be against each other, but how do we really intentionally design in such a way that we can actually dovetail those? Because of course it's possible, but not without failure, right?
No, and there's a lot to navigate there, like you were saying, bringing in authenticity, and say, in a workplace setting, if you were co-authoring with other people, how does that actually look? And a lot of the time that doesn't really look like everyone sort of doing the same thing, but often for the purposes of assessment and the standardization that we kind of have with large numbers, it becomes difficult to say, okay, you can have this role and this group can have that role and you can do your things. But it becomes that, like, no, everybody has to cover everything and do everything and learn everything. And so that's a challenge. But I think that comes down to any kind of PBL design that you have. You would need to look at what the elements of the system are that it needs to live within. So in higher education, for example, and not only there but throughout and at exit level, I guess it's more of a thing that you have NQF levels. You have what the regulators want to see. And then, as we spoke about, you have the students' needs, and then if it's relevant, the parents' needs, and so on. And when it comes to regulators and NQF levels and stuff, it's a lot of report writing. It's a lot of proving of, okay, what we're doing captures or speaks to the problem solving pitched at the right level. So there's a lot of sort of justification work like that to do, which when you do it, you can come back with more of a thing of your managers, your colleagues do feel more safe. They can kind of look at that and go, okay, everything's still being covered, everything's kind of been considered, and then there's more chance of it going ahead. And then to match those things with the authenticity of it, or the finding place for example, community upliftment and engagement in like the NQFs, where you can go, this is how this is problem solving, or this is how that meets this predetermined learning outcome that we have. So in a sense, a lot of matching, right? This matches with this matches with this, and therefore everything's kind of going to be okay, which is what people want to feel safe. And that's not something to look down upon, like innovators sometimes can. It's like, just be Richard Branson, take risks, and say on your website you take risks. But I guess that would sort of be my advice. And that's an empathetic thing. It's like, okay, what do you need? How does it align with what I'm trying to do? And reflecting on my journey, I kind of had to learn that's how I need to work.
That's brilliant.
More sensitively, empathetically, and structure and empathy are very related in that sense. Empathy can be seen as a kind of airy-fairy thing, wishy-washy, emotional thing. But as a center of, like you were saying earlier, we were talking about earlier, design thinking, it's like a practical thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, learning ultimately is about making connections, right? And I think that's a really key piece of advice, Chris, that we can intentionally connect the dots for others, or even with others, when we approach innovative, pedagogies and processes, that we intentionally come alongside others and connect those dots. Like, I know you value marks. This is what I value. Here's what needs to connect. I know this is what we need to do. Here's my plan for that. I understand your fear of this. This is my plan. I think that really is, that's innovative leadership, more than just blazing innovation on your own channels.
And it's the relationship. So if marks are a thing for you, not a thing for me, I want to step into that and understand that, and then we would kind of, I guess, from me learning that this time, next time I can kind of discuss it with them. It would be a discussion of, okay, so how are we going to work that? If it's marks or something else, like, how much would you kind of need to let go of? How much would I need to let go of? Building that kind of relationship is also the student-staff partnership thing. And it's sensitivity to needs.
Absolutely.
Of everybody involved.
Yeah, I mean, like, people is purpose in people, and it's exactly that. It's putting people first, and and not just kind of having your own singular purpose, but really connecting the dots for people and connecting people to the purpose of what it is that you're doing. I think that's just an incredible learning design principle. So thanks, Chris, for your vulnerability in sharing those lessons and in kind of sticking your hand up and saying, let me share my failures so that we can get better together. I think that's absolutely wonderful. For those of you, if you are watching this video and you want to go check out more of what Chris has done with the students, you'll find the link below in the chat. You'll also see there you can connect with Chris and chat to him. Chris, do you want to maybe give us a glimpse into where you're going in case there's anyone watching that might want to connect with you and collaborate with you to continue to make an impact?
Sure. So I'm continuing in this space in academia in various forms, but I'm also trying to branch out to take academic principles and research-based education to rehab centers or clinics, where I want to empower those patients, or I guess who would become students in this process with me, to kind of use research and academia as a way to build confidence. And it's problem-solving research that I would use. So to give them the tools and structures to do that, so that they can kind of become more confident in themselves, to say, this is what I looked into, what I read about, this is what they said, these are my ideas, and they're good ideas. And so, I want to use academia for good. Not that it can't be used for good within the system. It's just all this design that needs to take place for it to take off, But
that is so exciting. I mean, I just think about even PBL in that space, and how I've seen students that have kind of really battled in terms of what's my purpose, where am I going, what am I here for, like how do I move forward in life, where's my place in the world, all of those massive questions, and how great learning design really gives us an opportunity to connect people to purpose, and to kind of discover that for themselves, and to connect to something that drives them and gives them that same kind of passion and fire that drives us to want to make education better. So that is absolutely super exciting. Thank you so much, Chris, for your time. It's been wonderful to connect with you. I'm really glad that you came across our path. And this has certainly inspired me to think about how we can take those principles that we want our students to engage, but actually bring them into our own learning design practice in whatever space it is that we happen to be in. So thank you so much for your time. As I said, your vulnerability and your expertise really are most encouraging. So that brings us to the end of today's episode of Espresso Cafe. We hope that you will join us online for one of our Teach Fix webinars, and that you'll also pop to our websites and go and explore more exciting stories of innovation, just like Chris's one, as we continue to kind of collectively challenge the status quo. But I think the one thing that I've really gained from today's lesson, it feels like a lesson, today's chat, is really the consideration. So until we see you again next time, keep considering.
And keep empathizing.
Till next time.
Thank you. Well, okay, wait. Where's the actual camera? There we go.